welcome to a new video. Today I'm going to be doing more diverse romance recs. So I did one of these videos a couple months ago now, and today I'm just going to keep adding to that list. Like I said last time, by diverse romance reads, it's a very large umbrella. I'm going to be touching on LGBTQ+ romance books, diverse authors, diverse characters of weight, gender, sexuality, people of color, anything that I can think of, disability representations, anything that I come across that I think was a good book and a good representation. So let's get into the couple recommendations I have for today's video. First is a bit of an old book, but I just have to talk about it anyway because I reread it recently and I still love it, and that is the Kiss Quotient by Helen Wong. I adore this book so much. It is an incredible representation and just such a good romance book. I love it so much. It follows a character with ASD, or autism spectrum disorder, and she approaches life differently because of her disorder, but she's never let it completely define her. But she is really good at her job. She does something with math, statistics. I don't understand any of it, but she is kind of getting pressured by her parents to settle down and get married soon, but she's never been very comfortable with dating and men and everything. So she hires an escort to teach her how to be a good girlfriend, basically, to teach her how to be good at sex and how to date and everything. And it is just absolutely hilarious. It's so good, and the relationship that they build together is just so beautiful, and there's some really great representation, not only with the ASD, but they are also Asian American in the book, and it's just such a good book. I love it so much. I reread it, and it withstood I don't know what I'm saying. It was a good book still after all these years, because I read it quite a while ago now, but I love it. Next, I read The X Talk by Rachel Lynn Solomon. I really enjoyed this book. It's another fun contemporary romance, and it had some really fun representation that I have not seen super often in books, in that the main character is Jewish, and I think the author is as well. It's not something I see often in books, especially in contemporary romance, for that to be brought up. So I really enjoyed that aspect of it. It's not an overbearing aspect, like religion isn't some main component of the book, but I do like that it's talked about and really it's a part of the character, and I really enjoyed the story. This follows two main characters whose names I don't remember, who work at a radio station. I learned a lot about radio that I never knew before because I know nothing. And they team up to do a radio show called The X Talk, where they are exes talking about other people's breakups, relationship advice, what went wrong in their relationship, all that stuff. But in reality, they were never actually together. They actually kind of hate each other. So it was a lot of fun to read. It was a really good audiobook. I think the radio aspect made it really fit into the audiobook format really well. So if you do have access to the audiobook, I do recommend that. But I really love this book. I definitely want to read more by Rachel Lynn Solomon. She kind of writes all over the place. She's got some YA, and I think this was her first adult. I'm more interested in reading her adult romances if she comes out with more of those, but I do kind of want to give her YA book a try as well. But that was definitely a fun read. My next recommendation is Only When It's Us by Chloe Leese. This book was really good, and I definitely want to pick up the rest of the books in this series. I listened to this one on audio as well, and this was a really interesting story. This has some deaf representation in the book, and it was different than I've seen deaf characters come up in other series, in that this character, the hero of the story, whose name I can't remember, was not born deaf. He acquired it when he got sick in early college, late high school. He got meningitis, I believe, and that caused him to lose his hearing, as meningitis can in a lot of people. And it was a really big loss for him. He like really had to grieve that part of himself. And you see that a bit in flashbacks, and I just thought it was really beautifully written. And the way he has to now adapt to his view on what his life is going to be is just really, really interesting. He always thought he was going to play soccer. Yeah, it's soccer. And then when that all happened, he gave it up, and he decided to just go to school and just, I don't even know what he's majoring in, business or something, I don't know. But it was really interesting to see him change and adapt throughout the story, even though when the story begins, it's been a few years at this point, but I just really, really liked seeing his character development and him learning to speak again, even if it's only a little bit. He, for all that time, didn't speak at all. He mostly texted. He didn't learn sign language very much either, which I think was also another interesting aspect of the story, that not all deaf people have access to learning sign language. So I really, really liked this book, and I liked how it was obvious that a lot of research was put into it. I don't know what Chloe Lisa's experience with deaf culture is in the real world, but I think she did put a lot of research into it. I could really tell. So I really enjoyed it. This, if you haven't heard of this book, it is about him and this other character who she is a soccer player in college, and they get partnered up on a business class project or something, and they have to come up with this like semester-long project, and they have to work together, and they kind of hate each other, but then sparks are flying, and it's just really, really good. I will say, trigger warning for like loss of a parent grief. It handles grief quite heavily in this book, so if that's something that you cannot read, I would skip this one. My next recommendation is Girl Gone Viral by Alicia Ray. Now, this is the second book in the Swipe Right or whatever that pink book is, the first one. I didn't love the first one, but I liked this one a bit more. It's a really fun bodyguard romance. She, the main heroine, is got a lot of money. She was married to someone, and when he passed, he left all the money to her. I don't remember how he passed. And she has a bodyguard because at one point she was like kidnapped for that money, if I'm remembering right. But nothing that bad happened. I don't remember. I read this like a year ago. But her bodyguard has always been quite attracted to her, but has never done anything about it because he's working. But they're pretty close friends because he's literally always there. He's like a full-time bodyguard. And they are pictured together at a cafe, and they kind of go viral on Twitter, I think, as like this adorable couple, and they're like, that's not true. And she is having a really, really hard time with that. She's got really bad anxiety, PTSD from the whole kidnapping thing. And so she decides, I just need to disappear for a while, let this all blow over because I don't want to be a part of it. And so they go to his family farm, and it is just the absolute sweetest. Him opening up to her, and she, really starting to let go of some of that anxiety. And so it's a really great representation for mental health on her end and on his end to an extent, because he has a lot going on with his family, and it's also people of color and written by a woman of color. So I really, really enjoyed this book, and I think the third one is out now as well, but I haven't read that yet. But the first one is really good too. I just prefer this one. So if you haven't read an Alicia Ray book though, I definitely recommend. She's got quite a backlist that I haven't gotten to, but I really enjoyed this book, and it's got some really interesting aspects of representation that I did really enjoy. And lastly, to keep this video short and sweet, my last recommendation is a historical romance, and it is Destiny's Captive by Beverly Jenkins. This is the first Beverly Jenkins book I have read, and the only one still so far, but I do plan on reading more because I did enjoy this one. It wasn't my favorite. I do think I'll like some of the other ones more, but this is a pirate historical romance, essentially. Don't remember anyone's names, but he meets her, and she is the pirate. And if I am remembering right, I'm pretty sure she stole his pirate ship. Or his ship, and she's now using it to be a pirate. Maybe it was the other way around. I don't remember all the details, but I do remember that they met and were enemies, quite literally at first, but they get to know each other and they start to really like each other. And I do believe they end up married quite early on in the book. And then they travel to the mainland, and I believe they travel west, like out to the California area, and meet the rest of his family. And it's just a really sweet book. I will say it was a little light on the plot. Like it was not a plot-heavy book. But she does know how to really write characters well, and I really truly believed in their romance, so I did enjoy that aspect of the story, and I definitely want to read more Beverly Jenkins books in the future. She is the original, one of the original historical romance writers, and I think she has a lot of classics out there that are just really, really great. This is just the only one I've read so far, and I am looking forward to reading more in the future. So those are my recommendations for the part 2 of my diverse romance recommendations video. I know that was only 5, but I'm trying to keep these shorter videos and just sort of recommend more as I come across them. I love all of these books, and I think most people would enjoy them. I definitely recommend all of them, obviously, and I will hopefully see you for a part 3 at some point in the future of these books, or of this series. I have a lot of romance recommendations. So I hope you enjoyed. Like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff, and I will talk to you guys next time. Bye!